Hi, and welcome to the first of two installments regarding the analytical writing assessment portion of the GRE. Today we're going to take a brief look at strategies for the analysis of an issue argument, and next week in session 7 we'll be looking at the analysis of an argument essay. Very important to remember the context in which you will be writing these essays. Each of them are given a half hour of time, and they both are to be completed before the main event of the test, before the verbal and quantitative sections. So a couple of things to keep in mind here. The score is completely separate. You get a 0 to 6 for your writing score, not for each essay, just for overall. And this has nothing to do with your scaled GRE score. In fact, it is incredibly unlikely that anyone will ever read your GRE essays. Admissions committees all can read your essays. They have access to them, but they generally only read essays when they have concerns regarding an international student's English abilities. So if you're very confident in your English, you can write an organized essay with paragraphs and transition words. You're in good shape. It's really not such a big deal. You do want to know exactly what the task is, though, and be prepared for these essays so that it can be the easiest experience possible. It's really great to think of the essays as being sort of a warm-up, a time to stretch, get accustomed to the room, get accustomed to the chair, the cubicle, the earplugs perhaps that you'll be using when you take the test, and get yourself warmed up and ready for the main event, which are the scored, verbal, and quantitative sections. So get as prepared as you can so that the instructions don't take you by surprise and it can be an easy transition into those scored sections of the test. So in the issue essay, it's very important to note that it's completely different from the other essay in that you need to take a side. So I could go ahead and give you sort of, your first sentence for this essay is going to be acknowledging the issue's complexity. You want to say, wow, this is a hard decision to make. This is a very difficult and complex issue. However, I believe that X is clearly the right choice in this instance. And here are the reasons why I believe that X is the right choice. 1, 2, 3, and then you're eventually going to have body paragraphs about each of those reasons, and then a conclusion. Very formulaic, very straightforward. Your objective here is not to write a publishable, magazine quality, interesting essay. It's simply to order ideas on the page and answer the question. Very boring, very straightforward. So the 3 steps that you want to keep in mind. Do take a point of view. Choose a right or wrong, a left or right. Take a stance on the issue. The next most important thing is to support your stance with specific examples. And we'll talk in just a moment about what good examples are on the GRE. And finally, of course, you want to make sure that you follow all of the instructions. So while it's generally just sort of take a side on the issue and support your side, there are 6 or 8 different flavors of specific instructions you can get. And it's very important that you answer the specific benchmarks or questions pointed out in the stimulus. So here are 2 of those possible sets of instructions. The other 4 are included in your handout. I'll give you a moment just to check them out. So you may notice how these are essentially the same prompt with a couple of details that differ. In the first one, you need to address the most compelling examples that could challenge the position that you are advocating. And in the second one, you want to consider future consequences of implementing the policy and deal with that. So you just want to make sure if you have to take notes or write it on your scratch paper to remember that you acknowledge these specific points of the instructions. Now, the instructions will always be accompanied by a prompt, which is generally a quote of some kind or a statement like the one in blue here. So in our time, specialists are overrated. We need more generalists, people who can provide broad perspectives. Immediately, you need to think of whether you're going to agree or disagree with this statement, and then check the instructions for what the specific part of them may be. Here, we need to consider ways in which the statement might or might not hold true and explain how these considerations shape our position, in addition to choosing a position. So, once you've acknowledged what the instructions are and you've read the prompt, you need to take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes to brainstorm your essay. The better your brainstorming is, the better your preparation is, the easier it will be to sort of just get the essay out onto the screen. So basically what we recommend that people do is create a T-chart, one side for and one side against, and begin thinking of examples. And just start putting examples on either side. So oftentimes what students will discover is that even though they immediately feel that they are for a certain position, as they brainstorm, they might come up with more or just better examples for the other side. It happens actually more often than you might expect, that people can think of specific examples for supporting the other side, while their reasons for their position are less specific. So in that situation, you just want to choose whichever side you have the best examples for. As soon as you have, by the way, 3 examples for any side, you might as well just take that side and run with it. You don't have to fill out both sides completely and then make your decision. So here, just for example, for, we might say, well, Buckminster Fuller was a very famous thinker who advocated the generalists over the specialists. He thought the age of the specialists had come to an end for various reasons. We might think of, the financial crisis, a recent current event. Was because the specialists were sort of losing sight of the big picture. And we might also think about, there was a recent presidential election. So here it's important that presidents aren't just domestic specialists or foreign specialists. They kind of need to be a mixture of both. On the against side, again, there's any number of ideas here. These are just a few. The Manhattan Project, these are highly specialized thinkers, highly specialized scientists who, depending on your perspective, may have ended a war with one of their discoveries or provided nuclear power for generations to come. Specialized medicine is another example of the benefits of specialists or specialism. We also might say that the internet encourages shallow reading and that depth is the real key to scholarship. And so here we have a few examples sketched out. We just want to pick whichever side we felt would be easiest to elaborate on and begin writing. So we don't want to dilly-dally here. Don't spend too much time in the preparation phase. Make a few selections and get on with the writing. It's a very basic word processor that you'll be using on the screen. There's no spell check, etc. So just get ready to write a very basic, simple, straightforward essay. They don't count off for spelling, so to speak, or grammatical errors, though if you make continuous spelling errors or continuous grammatical errors, so much so that it sort of disrupts the rhythm of the reader or just annoys them, in that kind of situation, you're much more likely to lose marks for clarity, sort of indirectly penalizing your bad spelling. But again, one misspelled word here or there, one grammatical mistake, not such a big deal. It's only when they're continuous. Something else to keep in mind is that while you spend a half hour brainstorming and writing this essay, the readers who eventually grade your essay will probably spend 60 seconds or less reading and grading your essay. So it's very, very quick. They're not actually going to give your essay a lot of thought. They've got a stack of 1,000 of them that they need to go through in a day, and they're all about the same topic. So they're just sort of flying through it, making sure that you can construct logical sentences, put your ideas in order, group them into logical parts like paragraphs, and use transition words, etc. So please use this essay outline as your basic template. You don't have to get fancy with this. You can be very simple and straightforward. An introductory paragraph that states the issue, states your position, and gives a few reasons why. Body paragraphs corresponding to each of those reasons, and then a conclusion where you re-summarize your position and try to close with something, pretty or memorable or whatever. But don't stress yourself out about that. Remember that the most important thing is that you do finish the essay. You don't want time to run out while you're still writing the conclusion. And also, GRE writing scores are highly correlated with length. So the longer your essay is, typically the better your score will be. You get extra style points for using a mix of long and short sentences. So think about that. It's very easy under timed pressure and sort of a boring essay situation for your sentences to all have the same cadence, the sort of declarative, I believe this, and then there was this reason, and here is another reason. Again, a third reason. You can sort of get into this short, choppy mode. So try to mix it up. Have some long, complex sentences and have some very short, very simple sentences as well. If you drop a semicolon or a colon every once in a while, give yourself extra style points. You can try to use GRE type words, bullet point number 2 here, but be very careful here. Because if you start trying to use words that you think sound intellectual, but that you don't actually know how to use well, then you're probably actually doing yourself more harm than good. So keep it in the comfortable range of your vocabulary while trying to sound erudite or academic. But don't take risks with words if you don't actually know what they mean. And again, scores are correlated with length, so try to write as much as you can in that half hour. For ideas on examples to use, you can turn to sort of your undergraduate major, like whatever you studied, whatever reading you had to do. If you were an English major, you can use Shakespeare, you can use novels that you wrote, established sort of literary figures. You can always quote from Shakespeare, the American Revolution, the Civil War, whatever sort of big cultural shared historical events out there. Current events are a great source, and you could be doing sort of GRE reading for current events in The Economist or some of the magazines that we recommended, and kind of kill two birds with one stone. Be prepping for your essay at the same time as you're just improving your GRE reading comprehension and your GRE vocabulary. The point is that the examples are beyond the personal. So you're not talking about your sister or your boss. Those examples are okay if you have nothing better. How it's just far more effective to cite something shared in the world rather than a personal example. You can even make stuff up. And this is, I feel like, an important time to mention that no one who reads your essay is going to fact check it. So you can feel free to make up statistics or make up a book or an article to cite. If you really can't think of any actual ideas, you can use fictional ideas and present them as real. Just be careful there, and don't let your imagination run wild. Kind of keep it in the realm of the realistic. In other words, don't write about the manned mission to Mars, but you can write about homicide rates decreasing in a certain city, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Other places that we've mentioned already in the past for great GRE reading, again, as you might imagine, getting better at the writing section would involve reading as well. So here is a list of those sources again. And for more GRE specific or sort of essay specific practice, here's what you can do. In the GRE official guide, there are a number of sample essays. And these are a great resource for just understanding what the difference is between a 2 essay and a 5 essay. And so you'll see the scored examples all along the way, and you can just see for yourself, oh, this is what it takes to get a 6, this is what it takes to get a 5, etc., etc. You can log on to the ETS website to see a list of topics if you want to peruse. This is less useful, I think, than reading the quality of essays and the scores, but it's out there if you'd like. And of course, if you are registered for a course and you're taking a course right now, then you can complete a sample essay and turn it into your instructor for feedback. But this offer, by the way, is good only this week if you're in the class, or if you're watching this at a different time. It's only good during the week between session 6 and session 7, and your instructor will provide you with some feedback. Okay, good luck on your homework this week. We'll see you again in session 7.